There we go. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. My name is Sarah Smith. I'm the Student Success Coach for our Organizational Performance and Workplace Learning program here at Boise State University. We are recording for our webinar today. We're going to be joined by faculty and OPWL students and are super excited to share about our program. Today's focus is going to be on our Virtual Process Improvement Lab. And Steve, I'll let you take it away.
Thank you. My colleagues and I are delighted to be here today. We'd like to thank all of you for your interest in the lab. I'm here today with my partners in crime, my colleagues from the lab, past and present, Jenny Johnson, Osamome and Debio, Ryan Mays, and Jody Maminga. In case you're interested, I've put the link for our Process Improvement Lab website in the chat, so you can visit us there if you want. During our time today, I'd like to ask your indulgence for conducting a quick tour of the Process Management Lab, probably 10, no more than 15 minutes, just to introduce the lab and what we do and so on. But the really cool thing we have today is a panel of people who have worked in the lab past and present, and they are both current students as well as graduates of the OPWL program. And that's going to be the best part. We envision this webinar to be more of a discussion and a dialogue than the alternative long lecture with a few questions shoved in the end. So please feel free to ask questions at any time. Either put them in the chat box or feel free to unmute yourself and ask the question. I'd like to begin by talking a little bit about our people, because some of you have not had me before and won't have me in classes because I'm now retired. I wanted to give you an introduction to me. I got all my degrees from the University of Northern Colorado. After I earned a bachelor degree, I started teaching English at a community college. I decided that that wasn't the way to go, so I went back and started a master's degree and then completed an internship at IBM. I think I must have been their worst intern ever. But I did learn that I really liked working with adults in learning and development situations. That led to a job at McDonnell Douglas, which became part of Boeing. And I was an instructional designer there. I completed my master's while I was at McDonnell Douglas. And in 1987, I joined a small consulting firm named DLS Group. I did a lot of ID work there, but that's where I was also introduced to what I practice now, which is a performance improvement consultant. I was there almost 20 years, and then a job opened up at Boise State, OPWL. And I joined the faculty in 2007, and I was part of OPWL faculty until 2022. In 2020, some colleagues and I started the Process Management Lab, and I'm still part of that now. In the lab, I'm lucky enough to work with two other retired folks. One is Rob Anson, who is an emeritus faculty from Boise State's College of Business and Economics. He specialized in IT and supply chain. I also work with Fran Keprot. Fran used to be Rob's student. And after graduation, she became a chief information officer, both for Albertsons and Amalgamated Sugar. Central to the Process Management Lab is this collaboration of retired people with OPWL graduates and OPWL graduate students. For OPWL graduate students who are working with us for the first time, we require a 1-credit internship experience. If you're interested in learning more about the many different people who have been part of the lab, please see the Our People section on the PML website. We started the lab realizing that there was a real need. Nonprofit organizations do a lot of good in our communities, but in particular, small to medium-sized nonprofit organizations often are rabidly focused on meeting their mission and meeting their mission alone. And that focus tends to have them not paying a lot of attention to things that happen inside the organization. And furthermore, their grant sponsors expect this. They want to know that the money that they donate is going to meeting the mission and not necessarily to the operation of the nonprofit. What that lends itself to is a situation where small to medium-sized nonprofits in particular often don't have processes that are quite working well enough to meet their missions in ways that they'd like. And working with people who are consultants often can be really expensive, and small to medium-sized nonprofits don't have that kind of money. So we started the lab to provide process improvement help to these small to medium-sized nonprofit organizations. We do that by pooling the expertise of some retired people and graduates and graduate students. In doing so, we help nonprofits improve their internal processes so that they can build their capacity, and in doing so, better meet their mission, and in doing that, better serve their communities. We also did that so students and graduates alike can improve their process improvement, their facilitation, and their consulting skills. We've had several clients. This is a partial list. We began working in 2020 with the Idaho Food Bank, and we worked with them for about a year and a half to help them improve their food flow process from when they procure the food to when it's finally distributed across the state of Idaho. We worked with the Downtown Boise Association to help them improve their event planning process. We worked with the Center for Human Development, which is a nonprofit mental health organization in Western Massachusetts, and we helped them improve the process they use to provide software access for new employees. We've also worked with the Idaho Commission for Libraries to help them improve their training event planning. We're always on the lookout for nonprofit clients who could use our services, but not just nonprofit. We also include other clients who provide community-focused service, like the Idaho Commission for Libraries, where they're helping other libraries better serve their patrons. In the lab, we work remotely, and because of that, you can imagine that there's a lot of different software we're using. And I put this list together. I hope it's complete. What we use most often is a combination of Zoom and Mural. We use Zoom to coordinate our own internal efforts and our own internal meetings, but we also use Zoom to conduct process improvement workshops with our clients and to help our clients map their processes and then brainstorm ways to improve them. We use a whiteboard program called Mural. We use Mural primarily because it's powerful. We know it meets our needs. Jody will tell you more about that. But also because Mural is free for educators and nonprofit organizations. So it means that we in the lab as educators have free access to it. Our students have free access to it. And when we're done working with our nonprofit clients, we can transfer their process maps to them so that they become theirs in their own Mural spaces so that they can do their own continuous improvement after that. We're also using other software, and we use it less frequently, but we're seeing that there's probably an increased need to use it. And we want to thank our lab associates because they're the ones who bring this in. So we're using Adobe InDesign to create larger scale training handbooks and ensuring there's a consistent look and feel across the handbooks. The same graduate student that introduced us to InDesign, also came up with the template I'm using in this presentation today. We use Adobe Acrobat. We've been using Canva both to create infographics, but we've also been using Canva in design sprints, which I think Ose can talk more about later in this presentation. We've also started using Chat GPT in some different ways. Ose might be able to talk about how she introduced Chat GPT to us in ways that helped us write video scripts talking about lab services. There are different ways to participate with our lab. And so I want to talk about the participation opportunities and then about approaches for participating. I've talked about the process improvement workshops. Essentially, it's a 4-step operation. First, we need to find and qualify a client. Finding a client means finding a nonprofit organization that's interested in improving a mission-critical process. Qualifying means that we have leadership support for doing process improvement. Planning means getting together and determining the process we're going to improve, who needs to be involved, and how the workshops are going to be scheduled, and so on. And after each one of those workshops, clients get reports saying, here's what your people generated, so people can review that and we can make any corrections that are needed. So the workshops are the most visible, outwardly visible thing that we do. We're also creating training in process improvement and involved in course design. We've designed and piloted a half-day introduction to process improvement for the people at Boise State's Professional and Continuing Education Program, PACE. We're hoping to create a 1-credit-hour course for OPWL. We facilitate that training. The course we do for PACE is in person and live. We're going to modify the half-day course so it becomes a full-day course. And as soon as we piloted the in-person full-day course, we're going to figure out how to do that virtually so we can expand course delivery from just the Treasure Valley, which is like Boise and nearby areas, to cover the entire state. It's not just about creating courses, we're going to have to maintain them. And in addition to the course design, we've been creating videos, and we're doing that in collaboration with Dr. De Silva's Interactive Design Lab. One of the metaphors we used to describe the lab is we operate a lot like a consulting firm. And in a consulting firm, it's usually either feast because you have client work and you're working on it. Those are our workshops, those are the training. Or it's famine and you don't have work, so you're doing marketing. In the PML, we call our writers group the writer's block. I hope you appreciate the bad pun. The writing we do is a combination of marketing for the lab so more people know about the services we provide, and we show our expertise in a variety of areas related to process improvement. But the other purpose is to provide research to practice contributions to the field. So we've written articles. One of them recently appeared in TD Magazine. We've written a series of white papers and corresponding infographics. Those appear on our website, and they're distributed by the Idaho Nonprofit Center to nonprofits across the state. We have created and delivered, there we go, a variety of presentations. We're also looking at trying to figure out how to better market our services. One of the problems with performance improvement in general and process improvement in particular is that it can be really hard to convince something that they need, people that they need something that they don't know exist. So a lot of people aren't familiar with process improvement, especially in small to medium-sized nonprofits, and figuring out how to introduce ourselves and how to frame our services has been a challenge. So one of the things we're going to undertake is the creation of a marketing canvas. There are different approaches for working with us and participating. And over time, they've kind of divided themselves loosely into two different approaches. One is an immersive approach. We joke that it's the whole enchilada. And in that approach, people want to embed with the lab and spend as much time possible helping the lab with all of those different things that we do. So they'll participate in our standing meetings. They'll help us with marketing. They can be involved in writing things. They can be involved in delivering the workshops, in creating the training. We're very proud that the people who have wanted to do that immersive experience with us, by and large, have gone on to find their dream jobs in the field, and they're going to tell you about some of that today. We're also proud that they are able to create multiple portfolio items. But in order to immerse yourself with the lab, you have to spend some time with the lab, and that kind of tends to be around 5 to 10 hours a week. We also realize that not everybody is in a situation where they can do that immersive experience, or at least do it at this time. So there's also a more targeted experience. And instead of the whole a la carte, the whole enchilada dinner, this is the a la carte option. And so with this option, people will commit to one standing meeting, and that meeting is scheduled so that everybody who's working on that can be part of the meeting. They select their participation opportunities. So people might select to be part of the writer's block, or people might select to be part of the courseware effort. Because of this, they're still creating portfolio items, but they're probably creating fewer of them. And that time commitment, I think, ranges around 3 to 5 hours a week. And there's a lot of variability in what I'm talking about based on what's going on with the lab and what's going on with the lab associate, because we understand that OPWL students are balancing coursework, jobs, family. Our graduates are balancing jobs, other interests. And so these times can vary, and we negotiate so that everybody wins. We're not going to ask for a commitment that is uncomfortable to keep. But now we get to the good part. We have several panelists here who have worked with the lab or are working with the lab. And what we're going to do now is take a break, and I'm going to ask these folks to introduce themselves, and then I'm going to ask some questions. And I'm assuming that you're going to have some questions too. So as they come up, please feel free to pose them either by unmuting yourself or by typing them in the chat window. So why don't we go around and introduce our panelists, starting with Jody. And Jody, would you please briefly introduce yourself in terms of name and job title?
Yes, I'm Jody Maminga, and I am currently working for Boise State in University Financial Services, where I'm a process improvement analyst in the Office of Continuous Improvement.
Cool. Ryan?
Thanks, Steve. So my name is Ryan Mays, and I'm a consulting manager with Information Services Group. Lovely background, and I specialize in organizational change management. Been there for the past 2 years.
Jenny?
Jenny Johnson. Up until recently, I was a senior instructional designer at a company called Treliant, and I am currently on a career break, taking classes full time.
Ose?
Hi everyone, I'm Osain Debut and I currently work as a learning and design and innovation specialist for a health nonprofit health organization.
Marvelous. My next question, we're going to do the round robin again. And I'm going to ask, why did you join the Process Management Lab? And Ose, let's start with you.
Okay, so multiple reasons, Steve. As you remember, we had a whole meeting with Rob to talk about all the reasons why I wanted to join the lab. One of the reasons was that I wanted to accelerate my learning curve. Rob, Steve, and Fran together bring over 100 years worth of industry experience to the team. And well, I knew it wasn't going to be enough to gather all those insights and experiences from reading industry blogs or journals or just class. So, well, you could say I wanted to pick their brains, and I felt ill-prepared to enter the workplace learning landscape. I was coming from nonprofits, but not in the areas of process improvement, workplace learning, and all that sort of stuff. And while working with real-world clients in the classes gave me great opportunities, the environments were still too controlled and structured. So I wanted to work with the PML lab, and it kind of gave that setting of more of working for a real workplace. So I wanted to have those experiences to speak to since I was preparing to start interviewing, and yeah, and I knew they were into process improvement. I was interested in it, and I also had a client I wanted to bring along. So I actually brought a client to the lab to work with, and that was part of my pitch. I have a client, take me on.
I remember that. Jenny?
I joined the lab. I'm very, very new. So I joined the lab in December. I knew I was going to enroll in classes full time, and Joanne sent me a list of possible labs to join to get some more experience. And the PML stuck out to me immediately because I have volunteered for many nonprofits in my area, and I started to notice the same theme over and over again, that they were so entrenched in crisis mode almost. Like Steve mentioned earlier, they're so focused on their mission that sometimes they don't notice that their processes are broken. And if they would improve those, it would actually further their mission. So the minute I saw the PML, I knew, oh, that's something I really want to be involved in, because I want to learn how can I guide these nonprofits to improve their processes, tighten up their processes, because ultimately the mission is the goal. So like I said, I just joined in December, but I'm super excited to learn more about what they do.
Ryan?
Yeah, so I joined the lab because Jody and Steve said, "Hey, dude, you should join the lab." And I said, "Okay, it sounds good to me." But in all seriousness, I graduated, and then a few weeks later started attending the PML meetings. And what was attractive to me was still participating in a community of practice, even though I'd already graduated. So I think for me, one of the most rewarding and significant parts of the Boise State experience was positive people working together, overcoming challenges in the courses, and just all these relationships you build up. There's so much value you get out of that professionally and personally, that it just was a no-brainer to take that next step. And having an L&D background, it was also important to me to expand my skill set into process improvement. I thought that was kind of cool.
And Jody?
Well, I began working with Dr. Villachika and Dr. Anson prior to an existing PML. There was no lab. There was an opportunity, and so I became an intern for them as they were working with the Boise Food Bank. And they were taking the group through an exercise that's similar to some of the immersive experience that the lab offers now. And we were using Post-it notes on the wall and markers. And I loved the idea of approaching the improvement of individual performance by improving a process. And I was just hooked after that internship. And so that's how I started, like before there was actually a lab.
I'm going to stop sharing the screen for a while and get to the next round of questions. I'd like to start with Ryan and Jody to ask, what parts of PML projects did you take the lead on during your time working with us? And what types of project deliverables did you create or help create? Ryan, do you want to start?
Sure. So I mostly helped with the workshops and some of the preparation and getting the agendas created, and then doing some of the facilitation. At first, very much as a newbie, and then I got used to it. That was a lot of fun. So for me, the workshops enabled me to work on facilitation skills and all kinds of other skills. That was really quite a bit for me. I loved that. A little bit of reporting as well, but that's mostly where I focused, was workshops.
Since I was right there at the beginning, I was fortunate to be a graduate assistant, a research assistant for Dr. Villachica. And so together with Dr. Anson, we began the project management lab right as the pandemic was hitting. And so we had to really quickly find a way to take our work online, so away from the wall and the Sharpies and the Post-its, and somehow virtually online. And so I led a review of the technology that could help us create a virtual collaboration space. And that's how we came to choose Mural for the reasons that Dr. Villachica mentioned earlier. And then so basically that was just providing us with the whiteboard that we could use. So then we thought we should create a template of how to map out processes that would help guide our clients during the workshop. So to create that first template, that prototype, we actually used the process of creating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And the three of us mapped it out, and we created a template in Mural. And so I loved prototyping that. That was a lot of fun. And then during the client meetings, at first I played a role of more of a technographer, where I would move things around on the whiteboard. I would take notes and listen to the clients as they were telling us what the steps of the process were. But eventually I also became a facilitator, and I also created parts of I wrote parts of the report that were provided to the client. But most importantly to me, Dr. Villachica and Dr. Anson really helped nudge me out of my comfort zone. First, they built my skills up and my confidence, and then they supported me as I grew. So their mentorship was really my favorite part of the OPWL program overall, and the lab in specific.
Can I piggyback on that real quick? Because I think that's a really important point, that there's a psychologically safe environment where it's okay to fail and learn. And it's such a wonderful team to work with. And going through that discomfort and staying with it and getting to the other side was like one of the most professionally important things for me as well. And, something that Steve, you said early on was, we're building the plane as we're flying it, and you're laughing and you're smiling, and I'm like laughing and kind of sweating. And then like you get, okay, I can get used to this. And in the past 2 years, every single client I've worked with, they're like, well, dang, Ryan, you're never going to believe this, man, but we're doing something that you've never heard before. We're building the plane as we're flying it. And so like everyone's doing that. Everyone's going through constant discomfort. And so as a consultant, if you can put yourself through that a little bit and come to the other side, I think that's really significant.
Thank you. I would say I'd like to ask the same question to you. What parts of the PML projects did you take a lead on, and what type of project deliverables have you created?
So in addition to the process improvement workshops, which I didn't really take any lead on, I was just technographer moving things around. When I joined the PML, they wanted to create a series of videos to market their brand, and I offered to take the lead on that. So, well, the way I saw a lab was like, it was somewhere you could hypothesize and experiment. So I wanted to bring in a completely different process than the lab had ever done before. And like Jody and Ryan had talked about, like, it was a safe space. Like Steve would always tell you, like, no one's dying, nothing's gonna happen if anything goes wrong. Like, people aren't gonna die. So just feel free and safe to explore. So I introduced a process that is designed by Google called the design sprints. And it's kind of like using the design thinking over a process of 5 days, and they come up with a minimum viable product. But that didn't work for us. So I wanted to fast track creating a minimum viable product. We did not have 5 days. We had more like 4 hours, 2 work sessions to come up with a script and a storyboard for a video. So I created a process to do that, where we were generating content, storyboarding, and scripting. And the very first product I designed was in Beyond, where after that process, I created a video. Following that, I was joining, like, it was one of my missions to go through every single lab at Boise State University before I graduate. So I joined the interactive design lab, and I still wanted to work with the PML. So I came up with a proposal. I initiated a partnership between both labs, and I went to both of them, and I was like, look at how you both can work together. And we had a series of meetings, and I felt like someone brokering a deal, like a partnership between 2 organizations. And it's been a very successful partnership. So I focused on conducting the design sprints to take it from the process of concept up until we had a video with a storyboard to give like a designer, an e-learning designer. So there was a lot of fostering of collaboration between the 2 labs and lots of people coming in on the project. And I was able to call myself the sprint master. And over time, it offered me the opportunity to like refine the whole process, because I got to lead 3 design sprints. And by the 3rd design sprint, as in all of them are going like, wow, Steve, Rob, Fran, they were so impressed with me, weren't you? And so, yeah, I got the opportunity to create storyboards, scripts, process maps, job aids, videos, design maps, as in the whole works in the lab that I could add to my portfolio.
You also introduced us to using ChatGPT as an aid to writing scripts.
Exactly. By the time we had come up with the whole outline for the video, and this was for the 3rd video, before we went through the whole old process of like writing it out paragraph by paragraph and editing and going back and forth. And I was like, let's put everything we've come up with already, all our points, into ChatGPT. And we worked on a prompt. We told it how long we wanted the video to be, and we put it, and it was just like ChatGPT came up with different options, and we kept on refining it, as in like, because really the whole model is just for you to be feeding back and front, like, sorry, to clarify,
Right.
process or not. Sorry, I got distracted by the chat. So yeah, we came up with, like, we fast-tracked it even further, like producing a script even faster than we had done on the other 2 design sprints, using ChatGPT to improve our workflow.
One of the other metaphors that guides our work in the lab is that of a professional organization, where we realize that we are sustainable because of the volunteer efforts of all of us. And one of the tricks to ensuring that your volunteers want to stay volunteering is that you set things up in ways where you don't ask people for more time than they can give, and you don't ask them to do things that lie beyond their passions and interests. One of the cool things that OSE did for us in introducing us to ChatGPT was it had previously taken us about 2 weeks of calendar time for volunteers to come in and look at the script we were writing and kind of iteratively refine it. Then we used ChatGPT, and that was what, an hour and a half or hour-long meeting. So we had the bulk of the script done in that time, and within 3 or 4 more days, we had a completed script that went to the interactive design lab. We've since found other things that we're going to be using this for. Jenny, you've only been with the lab since December, and you were kind enough to start your internship with us before classes at Boise State started. In that time you've been with us, what kind of work have you done with the PML, and what are you doing now?
So far I have gone through the technographer training to be able to be a technographer during workshops. And then I was able to participate in the as-in workshop for the Idaho Commission for Libraries. So that was really interesting to see the beginning of the process improvement mapping in mural. And then currently I'm working as part of the writer's block to design infographics to support the white papers.
Then the next question is for Ryan, Jody, and OSE. How did your work with the PML help your other OPWL studies? Jody, can we start with you?
Sure, thanks. The work with the PML really flavored all of my project work after I joined. I just took the things I was learning with the clients in the lab became part of how I worked with clients for my different projects. But the biggest impact was probably to my portfolio, because I actually used the project management lab deliverables in my portfolio. And this is a little like bonus to being in the PML, is that I asked Ryan if I could share my portfolio presentation with him, and he had already graduated, and so he was able to give me a bunch of pointers, and that was really great too, the camaraderie within the lab itself. I was also able to present the lab's approach at the International Society for Performance Improvement, or ISPI. And I did that with Dr. Villachica and with Ryan. And that was a great experience as a student. And it really opened up my network to others in the field.
Ryan?
Should I take Ryan? I'll take you, Ryan.
Sure. Yeah, thank you. Okay. Yeah, so I had just graduated, so it was a little bit different, but what was helpful for me was taking the strategies and tactics and different types of deliverables I learned about in the OPWL courses, and saying, okay, how do you use this like in real life? What does it look like? I think maybe OSE, you said earlier, in graduate school, there's like a bit more stability. It's a bit, it's kind of bounded. You've got a syllabus and these criterion referenced evaluation methods, and you know what it takes to like do well in something. But when you're out there with clients, you might not get all the time you want, the right resources. You might not be able to do much better than a B- on certain little deliverables, or you might have to skip some, or shrink them down. And so being able to sort of go with the flow and understand that ultimately you're solving problems for the client. And so you've got these different things you can use, and you can flex into using them in different ways. That was a sort of nice way to see what I had learned in real life.
OSE, do you want to take a stab at that too?
Yeah, I'm still in school, but I can take a stab at it. So I would say that the PML gave me the opportunity to kind of like marry what I was learning in school with my interests and the path that I felt I wanted to take my career in at that point. So it just kind of like opened a world of opportunity. And I worked at the PML lab on like 2 workshops, the Center for Health Development and another nonprofit that was under the New York City Department of Health. For work, since I was going into a health organization, I was able to speak to those 2 things. And that kind of like gave me an edge. I had worked with health organizations, nonprofit. It kind of like showed that I was interested in this and I could prove I was interested. And then in school, it just gave me a more rapid framework for handling needs assessments and evaluation. Like I now see the as-is workshop process like a needs assessment. So I was able to very quickly visualize like inefficiencies, gaps, and pain points, which is all what you kind of like need in a needs assessment, identifying needs. And the as-is process teaches you how to do that in like 5 hours. So I'm able to like fast track how I do needs assessments because of that. And again, with the evaluation class and then the 2B, it also helped me again better visualize like the ideal future state for the organization I was working with. Helped me because you're mapping out like an ideal future state for the organization after you've identified what their as-is process is. So it helps. I'm better able to like present recommendations and let an organization know how it will affect them. And so basically, in summary, in a nutshell, because of my experiences with those workshops, I'm just able to like mix and match frameworks in a way that works for me instead of being tied into a particular model from start to finish. I have more tools in my toolkit, more resources to just pull on as needed. So yeah, instead of rigidly adhering to a framework. So I'll say that's what that experience at the workshop has done for me.
My last 2 questions are for Ryan and Jody. How did your work with the process management lab and your OPWL studies help you land the job and the work that you're doing now? I'll let you 2 decide who goes first.
Jody, you go first.
Okay. All right. Well, I actually work at Boise State, and both Joanne and Dr. Chung knew about my interest in process improvement. And so they were sending me links to jobs in this. And one of them that Dr. Chung sent me was for my current position as a process improvement analyst. And she encouraged me to apply. And during the interview process for that, for my current job, we were asked to do an exercise where we led a facilitation. And I actually used the template in Mural that we had created for the lab. And I was so in love with our template and just the process of it that I had 30 minutes, and this is a process that takes like 5 hours. So I didn't. The funny thing is that our team lead is actually on this webinar right now, and she experienced it. But I loved it so much, and I was so enthusiastic about the process of taking people through process mapping and identifying pain points. And it just came through in my interview because I had such an enthusiasm for it. I love my work as a process improvement analyst, and our team motto is better every day, which I also think could be the process management lab motto, better every day. The improvements since the beginning are amazing. So I'm it's really nice because you're still on the cutting edge. There's still things to improve within the lab itself. And that's a really exciting place to be in. When I started OPWL, I believed that I wanted a career in learning and development. And through the lab, I found out that I actually aligned better with the idea of improving individual performance by improving the process. And that amazed me, and it was really unexpected, and that came out of the lab.
Right. If you improve the process, individual performance will follow. Cool. Ryan?
So Jody, thanks for reminding me about the peanut butter and jelly thing. You know, for a while that was used as a sort of template to understand process improvement. And I actually used that when I was doing an interview for one of these consulting firms I was, engaged with. I'd say ultimately expanded my skill set, right? So now I'm not just L&D, I've got other parts to my repertoire. And so that helped me be of interest to a certain employer. I got an interview and other interviews after that. And so then, I got the job. So that's like the kind of boring answer is my skills were bigger, made it more likely to get a job. But I think there's a flip side of this question, which is getting the position and then also like holding the position and growing into it. And so, having that experience on my resume helped me be of value to know that, okay, the firm can say he can go into these different roles and that's really great. Let's hire this guy. But then like you get put on these actual engagements and, they can be really wild and hairy. And so it's kind of like you got the job and now you've got a wild and hairy opportunity to try and perform with these different clients. And so I think it helped not only with growing my skill set, getting the job, but also being able to sit in that seat as the facilitator. No Rob, no Steve, no Jody, no Osei, no Fran, and be like, okay, all right, here we go. I'm going to lead you through this. And so I think that's just as much as important thing as like keeping the job, right? Doing enough to progress your skills and be of value you can keep that job. So I think that's, I guess, how I would reply to that, those kind of two aspects.
And Ryan, I just want to thank you because when you were applying for that job and you were preparing for your presentation, you shared it with a couple of us from the lab.
Yeah.
And as a student and somebody who hadn't been through that process before, to see you practice was really helpful as well.
Awesome. I'm so glad. And I got to say, like with Osei, like the things you did with the design sprints, I never thought about that. So when I took a hiatus, I came back to the lab and I was like, whoa, what's going on here? And there's all this cool new stuff to learn and new aspects to think about our own practice as a lab. So I don't know. It's just there's so much energy and explosion of like ideas and things going on. It's really inspiring.
I want to jump in, Steve. Is that okay?
Oh,
Okay.
sure.
Yeah, I want to mention that it is exciting for me to see people join the lab, not know anything about it, and come out and have clearly you innovated. Clearly you had some practice. And this is all virtual, which is one of those things that they say, you really can't innovate that much unless you're face to face. And the process management lab defies that. And it's really impressive, the learning outcomes that I see that you all do. And so is there something special about your selection process that you really get the individual, Steve, that can unfold? And is there something there, or is it really just the lab and the opportunity provided?
I think we're lucky. I also think it's the lab and the people I work with. I also think it's because we model a lot of what we do on the basis of a sustainable professional organization. We realize that, we're really all volunteering a lot of our time in what we're doing. And if we're going to ask people to volunteer their time, we need to be very careful about matching their interest and their passions with things that we need done in the lab. And we take a lot of time in terms of finding those matches and making them work. But we've been successful in it in that our lab associates created much of our website. Our lab associates are who we're partnering with in the workshops and who we're writing and publishing with and who we're building courses with. And so I think that's worked. The other thing, coming out of that same mentality is if we're all volunteering our time, then two other rules apply. One is that we're all equals here and we make decisions together. And for me, it's really nice stepping away from the instructor role and becoming a colleague. And enjoying the benefits of what goes on in the lab, because there are times when old retired people like Rob and Fran and I can mentor younger people, and that works out really well. But there are other times when our lab associates are actually mentoring us, and that's been amazing. And so we want to make sure that we have an environment where that thrives. And then the last thing is that I am old and grouchy, and I have spent too much of my professional life doing panic dances, trying to meet something on a deadline schedule that's impossible, and finding a way to do it, but doing that through a lot of brute force and massive ignorance and late hours. And for the lab to be successful as a volunteer organization, we can't put ourselves in that situation. None of us have the bandwidth or the tolerance for that kind of panic-driven activity. So we have the luxury of scheduling things so people have adequate time. And I think that helps because it's important to have time to think of things, to be able to digest them, to put something away and realize, the next day in the shower or 2 o'clock at night or driving to work, suddenly this idea magically appears. Here's how we do this. And so we take advantage of, the things that can happen in an unrushed and deliberate and funky and innovative environment. So far the magic's worked, and hope it continues to. Dylan, you've made a couple comments. Would you like to elaborate on those further?
Sure. The main one is that question I asked. And so early on, as you were presenting, it sounded like a lot of the things you did were, the workshops and the training and that kind of thing. But then as Osa answered, it seemed like there might actually be like physical improvements, maybe training isn't the answer. Maybe they just need a job aid or something. And so y'all do a mix of both materials, correct?
Correct. The neat thing about process improvement is that we take one particular process, and that process usually cuts across the organization, and there are different departments, different people involved in doing it. And we get them all together, the folks who do the work, in the same room, and we ask them first to help us map the process so that we share a similar mental model of what the work actually is. Then we ask people to go through and specifically point out to the steps in the process where something's broken, something isn't working right. We call them disconnects. We call them pain points because the word performance gap doesn't resonate with our audience. And they come up with those disconnects, and those disconnects typically involve what we call FRED, frustrations, rework, errors, and delay. Now, they could be other things like in your work in a refinery. Disconnects could involve people getting seriously hurt or damaging equipment or people losing lives. And so you have a set of disconnects there that are often more critical than those we deal with in small to mid-sized nonprofits. But those disconnects are a series of performance gaps that occur at different points in the process. We also will re-engineer the process. And then given the disconnects, we ask people to formulate solutions for those disconnects. they will always come up with more solutions than the organization has time or money to implement. So we we ask participants to rate solutions in terms of their overall benefit to the organization, high, medium, low, and their overall level of effort to implement, high, medium, low. We'll take the higher ranking proposed solutions and we put them in a ring. We call it the battle royale, and we ask people to vote on those. And then we'll take the top voted solutions, and then we'll work with participants to specify the initial implementation steps for those. So you're absolutely right in that what comes out of these process improvement sessions are improvements to the workplace process, improvements to the tools for completing the process, supports for the process in terms of job aids, signage, other guidance. Also, training can come out of this, but the nice thing is when you have everyone who's making decisions in the room at the same time, our rule is they can't talk about training unless we also talk about who's going to be accountable for skill transfer to the workplace. So if we're going to put together the training, then we need a commitment from supervisors and managers that they're going to provide coaching and feedback when trainees return to the workplace. So what's fun about this is we get to cover a broad range of performance improvement itself.
Thank you so much, Steve.
Oh, thank you. Are there one last question or comment before you go? Elisa, thank you for being here. And thanks to Dr. Giacomo for telling you about the lab.
Yes, actually, thank you for having me. I'm actually really, really excited, and I'm glad that I joined in. There were so many points that really resonated with me, but I kind of jotted down really a point that I took away from everybody. Hi, Joanne. It's been a while since I've seen you, but hello. Ryan, when you touched on that point about it being a safe environment, that is so key, especially, for newbies, like me. I mean, an older newbie, like me. Again, that's where I can kind of feel for where Jenny is right now too, because I'm really just eager to look for any opportunity that I can really just sink my teeth into. And so I appreciate that comment also. Jody, your discovery of your true passion through this program is inspiring, and that's so exciting. I love that, because for me, L&D just seems so natural, and so I know I can do that, and I know I would excel at that. But the idea of performance improvement is so intriguing and exciting. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. And then Osei, just, I love the fact that you're actually you're finding ways to improve the performance of helping others to improve their performance. I mean, just finding all these tools and using them and really utilizing this opportunity to master exactly what you're doing. And that is to even improve this process. So it's inspiring. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you. Michael, thanks for being here. Is there anything you'd like to ask or comment on before we need to close this down?
Sorry. I'm intrigued, and I really actually wasn't. I was curious enough about what the lab was, and continued to wonder about it. And then I saw this opportunity to hop on this, so I came on with no expectations, just to have an understanding of what kinds of activities the lab was engaged in. So I just have things to think about, and my time as well, and what kind of time I can provide.
Cool. And all of you are welcome to join, whether you join us as OPWL students or you join us as graduates. We'd love to have you either way, or both. Sarah?
Steve, thank you so much for speaking at our webinar today, and to our panelists, thank you so much. It's one thing to see the information online or even just have a staff member share out about the program, but to hear your experiences and everything that you went through with the program, and what you've implemented afterwards has just been incredible to hear. I'm going to pop in our chat in case anybody is interested in learning more about the OPWL program offerings or booking up an appointment. We have our booking link in there, as well as our email address. So if anybody is joining us today thinking about pursuing your Master of Science degree or going after a graduate certificate, keep us posted if there's any questions. Thank you again to everybody for joining us today. We will wrap up with our recording.